The annexation of Hawaii's powerful and culturally rich monarchy is something that continues to be discussed even to this day. It is a tale of greed, power, and cultural clash that holds many lessons for us to explore and reflect upon. So, where can we start? At the very beginning, voyaging Marquesans first arrived on the island in 400 AD. Captain James Cook was one of the first European explorers to reach Hawaii in 1778, sailing from England again as commander of the HMS Resolution and Discovery. They were initially welcomed by Hawaiians who were fascinated by the Europeans' ships and use of their iron. The Hawaiian Kingdom was initially founded in 1795, with each of its islands having its own government system. But Kamehameha the Great conquered these islands of Oahu, Maui, Molokai, and Lanai, which were all independent at the time, and created the Hawaiian Kingdom.
The Kingdom of Hawaii was sovereign from 1810 to 1893. On December 23, 1826, Hawaii's independence was recognized in a treaty informing the world of Hawaii's sovereignty, signed by the U.S. government. And in as early as 1820, European missionaries began showing up to Hawaii and attempting to convert those on the island to Christianity. Many would even discourage traditional cultural practices, deeming them savage. The Hawaiian Kingdom was governed until 1838 without legal enactments and was based upon a system of common law which consisted partly of the ancient kapu, which is understandably quite different from American values. There was a series of rules for sexes that were punishable by death, like separation when eating and certain dietary restrictions for females. Additional practices of the celebrated chiefs, like a warrior culture that encompassed weapons, tattoos, martial arts, and hula, that had been passed down by tradition. In the sphere of traditional Western values, these clearly clashed.
Before Western contact, the Hawaiian Islands were incredibly self-sufficient, producing all food that the population needed not only to survive, but to thrive. In pre-contact Hawaii, 250,000 acres of land produced 1 million metric tons of food annually, enough to feed 86% of the island's current population. Even up until the start of the overthrow, Hawaii depended heavily on sugar and its agricultural and economic benefits, creating a thriving industry. As a result of both Western influence and a rising population, Hawaii began to create formal legislation, with a first constitution in 1840 and a second following constitution in 1852, written by Kamehameha III. These Declaration of Rights stipulated the certain forms of government and rights that those in executive power positions held, and the third constitution was following, written in 1864. These constitutions made Hawaii less democratic, created voting restrictions, and abolished the prime minister position that was initially enacted.
In 1874, King Kalakaua started his reign and built Iolani Palace just 11 years before the overthrow. The palace was the official residence of the Hawaiian monarchs, where they held official functions, received dignitaries and luminaries from all around the world, and entertained often and lavishly. Before Iolani, the original palace was Ali'iolani Hale, built between 1871 and 1874.
To get a better understanding of the palace itself and what other people thought, a visit to Iolani Palace and a few small interviews opened our eyes to what other people have learned from the palace, both inside and out. Here, did you have any kind of knowledge, or were you kind of just coming in ready to learn, or did you have any prior knowledge of
Honestly,
I knew
very
almost
little
nothing.
knowledge.
Yeah.
I knew it was one of the later states brought in, and I knew it had a monarchy prior to that, but I didn't know about the history of the monarchy or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
The fact that there's this much organization, to it,
Yeah.
like a full line, was
Yeah, it was
surprising to
super
me.
cool. And they said they were one of 50 recognized nations at the time of
that's
which
crazy.
was so cool.
Yeah,
So, I
awesome.
didn't know any of that coming in.
Yeah, what were a couple things that you guys learned that you didn't know while you were in there?
Just how much immigration was to Hawaii, because I kind of thought it was left on its own more so, versus finding out that it was a ton of Chinese, ton of Japanese, just stuff like that.
And the overthrow of the monarchy was very interesting and sad to learn about, and how much the business of sugar export.
Oh, and the Portugal people too.
Oh yeah, the Portuguese
the Portuguese people are coming down. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Even how many trips they made to and from Europe, even though they're all the way out here.
Another woman, originally from Australia, highlights the palace's unique architecture and its possible European or Western influences.
The roof goes to the tiled roof I think it's a mansard roof, isn't it? A French thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's about all I can tell. Well, and it just kind of looks like an 18th century, a 19th century building, sorry.
Yeah. In regards to what the palace can do for us today, we went to Dr. Askman for some advice. He is a history professor here at HBU, as well as a docent at Iolani Palace, along with numerous awards and publications. Here's what he had to say about it.
story of the palace is actually that the efforts that especially Kalakaua makes to try to get uh, recognition for Hawaii from other countries and to have relations with other countries. And so I think that is a history that visitors should know. That, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't go to the beach because you probably want to go to the beach and go to other sites as well, but that the history is so important, I think, to understanding the way that Hawaii is today. And I think it is something that if people knew more, they would be more interested in as well. So a lot of times, like if I have visitors at the palace, they will come away with, I think, a much greater understanding about things that took place before, but still impact us. Still impact us today.
The Hawaiian Patriotic League began the rebellion of 1887 and drafted their own constitution on July 6, 1887. It was written by Lauren Thurston, the Hawaiian Minister of the Interior, who used the Hawaiian militia as a threat against Kalakaua. The Bayonet Constitution allowed the monarch to appoint cabinet ministers, but stripped him of the power to dismiss them without approval from the legislature. Kalakaua was forced by assassination to sign this new constitution, making it one of the first and most powerful steps towards the overthrow of the monarchy itself. Eligibility to vote for the House of Nobles was also altered, requiring both candidates and voters to own property valuing at least $3,000 or have an annual income of no less than $600. This disenfranchised two-thirds of the Native Hawaiians and other ethnic groups. As mentioned, this Bayonet Constitution took power away from the structural monarchy that existed and shifted it over to the Euro-Americans becoming more present in Hawaii at the time. The overthrow of the monarchy was started by newspaper publisher Lauren Thurston, a Hawaiian subject and former Minister of the Interior, who was the grandson of American missionaries and formerly led by the chairman of the Committee of Safety, Henry E. Cooper, an American lawyer. They derived their support primarily from the American and European business class residing in Hawaii and other supporters of the Reform Party of the Hawaiian Kingdom. In November 1889, Kalakaua traveled to San Francisco for his health, staying at the Palace Hotel. He died there on January 20th, 1891. His sister Liliuokalani assumed the throne in the middle of an economic crisis, and her reign would unfortunately become the last of its kind. The McKinley Act signed by the U.S. government had boosted tariff rates, crippling the Hawaiian sugar industry by removing the duties on sugar imports from other countries into the U.S. This eliminated the previous Hawaiian advantage gained via the Reciprocity Treaty of 1875, where Hawaii initially had more fiscal control of their imports and exports. On January 17, 1893, Queen Liliuokalani of the Independent Kingdom of Hawaii was overthrown as she was arrested at gunpoint by U.S. Marines. The Queen had been working on a new constitution that would restore voting rights to Native Hawaiians. She was locked in a room of Iolani Palace and was even delivered flowers wrapped in newspaper, one of the only ways for her to access local news. A new provisional government was installed by Sanford B. Dole as the president. The troops had landed the day before, providing support to protect American lives and property. In 1898, President William McKinley signed a joint resolution of Congress authorizing the annexation. The monarchy was overthrown. It became territory of the U.S. in 1900 and an official state in 1959. What's happened since then? There have been many lasting effects of Western invasion in Hawaii. The culture has been completely diminished. Native Hawaiians have been wiped out by disease and overpopulation, so there are very few Native Hawaiians who live in Hawaii now. Native Hawaiians have very strong cultural values. One of these values is aloha. The aloha spirit is a reference to the attitude of friendly acceptance for which the Hawaiian Islands are very famous. It can refer to a powerful way to resolve any problem, accomplish any goal, and to achieve any state of mind or body that you desire. Another is hula. For both ancient and modern Hawaiians, the hula is the essence of life itself. It links them with the universe and makes them one with all creation. While it is open to interpretation, one of the most common stories is about the tale of Pele and her sister Hi'iaka. Another is Aina, the Hawaiian word for land, which means that it feeds. It encompasses the Hawaiian worldview of a reciprocal and familial relationship between people and land. Connection to Aina is essential to the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of Native Hawaiians.
Many Hawaiians are even interested in receiving sovereignty over previously owned land, and in a panel with PBS Hawaii, some Native Hawaiians discuss what that would look like.
Talk about sovereignty. What are we talking about?
A lot of people have different ideas about what that means, but for me it means political control over land. And that's the simplest way to put it. It's not a feeling in your heart, it's political control over land. At the moment, we Hawaiians don't have political control over land, and that's what we're seeking.
Some Hawaiians are already beginning to take sovereignty over native lands reimbursed to them by the government, like shown here.
Moving through Waimanalo, which is a stronghold of the sovereignty movement here in Hawaii, and we're headed to a village in the hills that was established by a sovereignty group called the Nation of Hawaii. The village is called Refuge of Waimanalo, with a population of roughly 80. The state handed the group 45 acres of land in the 90s. Along with the renewed fight for independence came a cultural shift throughout Hawaii. Native Hawaiians began reclaiming traditions that were once actively suppressed. That meant teaching youth language and dance, getting traditional tattoos using ancient techniques, and fostering traditional farming and food making.
At the end of the day, the annexation of Hawaii was a very dark event that carried heavy impacts on Native Hawaiian people to this day.
It is now up to us to support those communities and do what we can to educate ourselves on ways to properly reform the damage that has been done.
We challenge you to learn something new about Hawaiian communities today.
And to take a step forward in political action and respect your aina with aloha.